Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Friday, August 4th. This is Gina McGuire. Over the next couple of days, we will have increases to fire potential as thunderstorms spread north. Today, mostly wet thunderstorms concentrated over the southern half of the Great Basin. However, lightning activity will increase today over parts of the Sierra Front into far western Nevada, and this area is where we'll see a mix of wet and dry thunderstorms along with very gusty outflow winds after a period of near record temperatures. Also, winds will be breezy with northwest winds over southern Idaho gusting around 25 miles per hour, and these winds may also continue into Saturday and extend further south into northern Utah. However, on Saturday, we'll see a greater push of lightning over parts of northwest Nevada, and again, these thunderstorms will be a mix of wet and dry in areas where fuels are very critical after very hot temperatures. Wetter storms will continue down south on Saturday, and by Sunday, this moisture moves north up into northwest Nevada with wetter thunderstorms. However, the drier type or mixed wet and dry thunderstorms will spread further east across northern Nevada on Sunday and eventually up into Idaho by Monday. Over the last 24 hours, we've seen generally wet thunderstorms over the southern half of the Great Basin, and in this area over parts of the Arizona Strip into southwest Utah, rainfall amounts were over a third or half of an inch, with some areas seeing over an inch of rainfall. Lightning was very isolated over the western side of the basin, and these thunderstorms generally produced light amounts of precipitation, with some areas seeing near a tenth of an inch. Great Basin fire activity was light yesterday with a reported 23 new fire starts, but no new large fires. Precipitation over the last 7 days, the image on the left, shows generally very light amounts of precipitation, with again much of that concentrated into southern areas. And over the last 30 days, the above normal precipitation has been where the monsoon has been most consistent over the southern half of the Great Basin, with very dry conditions further north. Looking at how our ERCs have changed over the last few days with the very hot and dry conditions in the north, you can see ERCs above the 80th or 90th percentile over the northern half of the area, and even over parts of the central Idaho mountains, areas over the 97th percentile. It's in this area where ERCs are hitting new records for the time of year. 10-hour fuel moisture, again very representative of our lighter fuels, showing very dry conditions over the northern half of the Great Basin. The satellite loop from this morning shows high pressure continuing to dominate the west, and you can see some remnant cloud cover still over the southern half of the Great Basin from convection we saw over the last 24 hours. Also, this area of low pressure just off the west coast will be what will be driving the moisture further north in the coming days. Now looking at the weather pattern for today, you can see the image on the left where that deeper moisture is in place over southern areas, with still very dry conditions over the northern side of the basin, again reflected in our significant fire potential outlook. Also, as lightning starts to push a little bit further north along the Sierra Front into far western Nevada, where we'll see a little bit more coverage today, these storms will be a mix of wet and dry with those gusty outflow winds being the main threat. Relative humidity remains in the single digits to low teens in the north and west. And again, the image on the right shows where we're expecting those showers and thunderstorms, maybe not quite as far north over central Nevada, but again, generally up to about Highway 50. Also, areas of smoke over the northern side of the basin from the wildfires will continue to affect visibility and air quality in those areas. On Saturday, we see the moisture move further north and west over western and northwest Nevada, and that's where we're highlighting the lightning for Saturday, as those storms again will be a mix of wet and dry before they become wetter, with gusty outflow winds still being the main threat after the period of record or near record heat and very dry conditions we're just coming off of. Wetter conditions will continue over the southern half of the Great Basin with those thunderstorms. On Saturday, relative humidity comes up a little bit along the Sierra Front late in the day as those storms transition to wet, but still remain drier further north. You can see the expanse of thunderstorms on Saturday over much of at least western and northwest Nevada and continuing over the southern half of the area, with still areas of smoke and dry conditions across Idaho. On Sunday, that moisture pushes a little bit further north and east, now moving its way into all of northern Nevada and potentially even northwest Utah, with some wetter type thunderstorms across Utah, and still a mix of wet and dry storms over the northern half of Nevada. However, this activity likely won't push into Idaho until Monday. On Sunday, those relative humidities continue to climb from south to north as we move into central Nevada, and you can see the area on the right where we're expecting those showers and thunderstorms. And again, still areas of smoke across Idaho. Looking at the overall forecast amount of precipitation, again, the wetter rainfall with the thunderstorms, better chances of wetting rains over the southern half of the Great Basin, with only spotty precipitation or increases in humidity eventually over northern Nevada. As we move into early next week, that moisture finally starts to move north on Monday into Idaho. How far north that expands is still somewhat in question, so we may not see much activity in the west central Idaho mountains. However, over parts of southern Idaho into southeast Idaho is where we're expecting a little bit more of that mixed wet and dry lightning activity, again, where ERCs are very critical and we've seen very dry conditions and warm temperatures. Further south, we will see moistening of the fuels as those scattered showers and thunderstorms continue, with a little bit better chance of moisture. By Tuesday, we still may see some lightning activity into the central Idaho mountains. We have not highlighted that yet for high risk for lightning, but we are continuing to monitor that as fuels are very critical. Otherwise, over the southern two-thirds of the area, we'll continue with those wetter type thunderstorms. You can see now drier air, however, working its way into far southern areas of the Great Basin, so we'll see a very interesting pattern as southern areas dry out and those thunderstorms are pushed a little bit further north. The same story on Wednesday, drier air moving into southern and far western areas of the Great Basin, with that moisture lingering across Idaho, parts of northern and eastern Utah, with those wetter type thunderstorms. On Thursday, a very similar pattern continues, with again moistening of the fuels over much of central and eastern areas of the basin. 7-day overall forecast amounts of precipitation. Again, you can see where the best chances of wetting rains are, generally over central, southern, and eastern areas, with still some spotty precipitation further north, but still we'll see the increase in humidity with at least light amounts of rainfall in most areas. The 8 to 14-day outlook is also rather interesting. Still warm temperatures over much of the basin with the exception of the far east, but the precipitation pattern is rather interesting as we get into the middle of the month, with still showing that above normal precipitation over northern and eastern areas and that drying trend continuing in the far south. That concludes our briefing for today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you for listening.